y'all. My name is Salonek. You heard, and I'm the Policy and Organizing Director out from Minnesota. And I am here because I believe that direct action is important because it forces communities that ignore us to come to the table, and it's a place where we can all feel a sense of liberation. We're going to talk about the importance of direct action, and I'm going to ground us in our recent ancestors who won the Civil Rights Act. It feels pertinent to share this story, particularly here on Southern ground, right next to a place that commemorates the sit-ins that happened in Louisville. So in 1963, civil rights leaders knew they had to ramp up their fight for racial equality. To do this, they decided to plan a series of boycotts in Birmingham, Alabama. At the time, Birmingham was the worst of the worst racist towns in our country. It was alternatively known as Bombingham because of the many black churches that were bombed. Black citizens faced legal and economic disparities, as well as violent retribution when they attempted to bring attention to their problems. Both the mayor and the chief of police, Eugene Bull Connor, were ringleaders in that violence and hatred. It was expressly because of that violence that Birmingham was a strategic location, because tactics that the police and other whites used were so extreme that it brought more people to the side of the civil rights movement. Protests in Birmingham began with a boycott to pressure businesses and provide employment opportunities to people of all races, as well as end segregation in public facilities, restaurants, and stores. When business leaders resisted the boycott, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference organizer Wyatt T. Walker and Birmingham native Fred Shuttlesworth began what they termed Project C for confrontation, a series of sit-ins and marches to provoke mass arrests. But many adults were afraid to take the risk, and did little to draw attention to the situation. Dr. King was jailed 13 times, and on the 13th time wrote the famous letter from a Birmingham jail on smuggled-in toilet paper, newspaper, and a pen. When that letter was published, it earned him his freedom, as well as the freedom of Reverend Ralph David Abernathy. But it wasn't enough. So in stepped Reverend James Bevel and came up with a plan to organize children to resist the segregation. They made a plan to march from the 16th Street Baptist Church and march to City Hall to talk with the mayor about segregation in the city. This was an incredible decision considering the amount of violence and pushback that they were up against. Ultimately, 1,000 children marched the first time. Their parents were standing on the sidelines crying out of fear for what would happen, and some yelling, "Children sing, children sing." And they sang, "We shall overcome," as they marched. The children were sprayed with high-power water hoses and attacked by vicious German shepherds. By the end of the day, police, under the order of the chief of police, Eugene Bull Connor, arrested 959 boys and girls. Their clothing torn and bruised. The images that got taken were shown all around the country and forced the President of the United States at the time, President Kennedy, to come to the table and negotiate. But he demanded that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King stop using children. But instead of that, Reverend Bevel refused and said, "No, we will march from Birmingham to DC and escalate." And with that, Kennedy came to the table, and that's how the Comprehensive Civil Rights Act was born. We have so much to learn from this past, and I'll invite you to think about what you're willing to risk for the sake of liberation, yours and all of ours. After sharing this hard story, I want to acknowledge, while we know we have moved closer to liberation in many ways, the practice of shoving black and brown children into cages is happening right now, hours from here. I also want to say that in Minnesota, we can't compare the context that we're in right now to what was going on in Birmingham all those years ago, but we do know that the communities that ignore the side of justice can be forced to the table through creating tension and turning the status quo toxic. And so I'm going to show you a few images of really joyous rebellion that we had at our Minnesota Capitol this year. We had a Valentine's Day action where we delivered hundreds of Valentines, followed by a queer after-committee party, and so many more. Thank you.